So I wanted to do a quick follow-up on the dative case. Um, when I was reading this this podcast for the instrumental case, I noticed there were actually quite a few really good illustrative usages of the dative case. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing because I don't want to make this into a long video. It's just kind of a follow-up on the other dative case video that I did. I just want to show you some of the examples in this podcast that Dasha had done. It's her number 3 podcast. Изучайте русский язык эффективно. So I've already highlighted everything, but I'm just going to go through the particular examples. So this one sentence in the middle, которые помогут вам изучать русский язык. So whenever you see this, like to help someone, помогут, поможет, помогает, помочь, you can very often expect to see the dative case being used. So to help for someone, basically. Yeah. So let's go to the next example. Here's another one, вам интересно. And we saw some examples like that. This is the very basic usage of for you, it's interesting. Very basic usage of the dative case. And now, okay, so with po, one of the prepositions used for the dative case, you can very often think of it as meaning by or on or via or by means of or sometimes even around. But in this case, I think it means by, basically. Вступить в разные группы по интересам. Okay, so by your interests, you can enter into various groups, basically. That's what's being said. Okay, so попробуйте найти подкаст, который больше подходит вашему уровню. Okay, so try to find a podcast that corresponds or matches to your level. So basically here, this is to your level, which is how that looks in the dative case. Whenever you see something like твоему, моему, своему, вашему, you know you're dealing with the dative case. Далее вам нужно. Okay, so вам, and this is the very basic type of usage again, for you. Помогут вам. So just like before, this is to help you. Okay, путешествие по России. So this is kind of the meaning of around or in. So basically traveling in Russia or around Russia. Another example, то есть вы уделите больше времени изучению. Okay, so уделить is to dedicate. And what do? You dedicate to something. So you dedicating time to изучению. Изучение turns to изучению, like we discussed in the last video, to studying. Right? Вам не обязательно. It's not necessary or not obligatory for you. Если вы будете сдавать экзамены по русскому языку, so this is basically in Russian, this is a set phrase, как иностранному, basically for foreigners, for a foreigner, то грамматика очень важна, я рекомендую вам заниматься по учебникам. So often when you see рекомендовать, then you're recommending to someone. And this is actually a very good reason why when Russians are speaking English, they'll say, I recommend you. I recommend you the book that I read recently, for example. And they forget to say, I recommend to you. Well, I believe it's because in Russian, it's very common just to say, рекомендую вам. There's just one word there. And so I think that helps to understand some of the errors that native Russian speakers make when they're speaking English. По учебникам, by using textbooks. So by means of textbooks. Не показывая другим людям. Okay, she's talking about where you can create a closed page or put your video somewhere where you're not showing it to other people. So whenever you see показать, if you're showing something to somebody, then the dative case is being used. So другим людям here is in the dative case. Учить вас новому. It's just to learn something new. Если вам интересно, basic usage if it's interesting for you. Помогает найти партнера. Okay, so in this case, помогает is not really being used as a trigger word, but this is just by a Russian exchange. По всему миру. Так вы можете найти друзей по всему миру. Okay, around the entire world is what we're talking about there. So maybe you can get a sense of why I mean. Sometimes it means via or by means of, sometimes in or on, or sometimes around, which is probably the best interpretation here. Показывать русскоязычным гостям. Forgot to highlight that. So this is to show something to somebody. This is to show your Russian-speaking guests. Now this one is a time construction, по 20 минут, and there are multiple time constructions where you can either use the genitive case or apparently the dative case. And I will be honest and say that there are some of these usages like this that I've never been completely clear on. And so I'm not going to try to explain this one. This is maybe some homework for you guys. Like I said, there are some aspects of the dative case that I haven't gotten around to completely understanding yet, and this is one of them. So, Paul is there, and it can occasionally be used with time constructions, but I'm not going to pretend to explain that particular usage. Okay, so задать вопрос. So you're going to put a question or give a question to someone. And what you want to notice here is dative case is дательный падеж, right? So any version of a verb that's dat or давать, but you have a prefix in front of that verb, like задать, and others as well. So, or передать, for example, you're going to think, all right, this comes from the core or the root verb of to give, which is the dative case in Russian, дательный падеж, right? And so you're giving this question, or you're putting this question to somebody, преподавателю или другим студентам. So that's why it's in the dative case, because you're putting a question to somebody. All right, what else is here? Что помогает вам? Again, this is back to what we were talking about before. To help someone, help for you. Я желаю вам успехов. Okay, so this is a very common usage of the dative case. I wish for you. And you can hear Russians say that from time to time too. I wish for you success in the study of Russian language. Okay, so I think that's it. As with all of the other files, I'm going to put this up on my Google Docs space, and I'll put a link to it in the description, and you're welcome to go there and check it out. I'm also going to put a blank version of this text there as well, so you can go in and practice each individual case, highlighting it, and then comparing it over against my results. And if you remember, with the accusative case, there were probably at least half a dozen instances that I had missed. So keep that in mind when you're actually comparing with the files with the highlights that I've created. Anyway, okay, I still owe you guys the probably the hardest case of all, or the most involved in explanation, and that's going to be the genitive case, but that will come next. All right, see you next time.